In this technical video, we will cover DPISSL. To me, this is a mandatory feature to turn on, simply because pretty much all your web traffic is HTTPS. So if you don't turn on DPISSL, not a single HTTPS traffic get inspected by IPS, antivirus, sandboxing, and what's not. So the firewall is pretty much blind to any HTTPS traffic if you do not turn on DPISSL. And make sure you stick around until the end, because I'll show you my own personal trick on how to deploy DPISSL without causing a ton of issues, because DPISSL is not a feature you can turn on Friday afternoon and just move on with your weekend. Hi, I'm Jean-Pier Talbot, SE for SonicWall in Canada, helping customer and reseller get the most out of their network security solutions. If you're new here, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on upcoming videos. So let's get started. Everything is HTTPS nowadays, even when you go to the Weather Network website, because they do have very crucial and confidential information to transmit securely to you, like the fact that it's cloudy outside. That is the type of information that must be encrypted and sent securely. More seriously, there are real reasons why all websites are HTTPS nowadays, like being able to be ranked higher in search engine. And that alone is a great reason to go use marketing funds, which are usually quite unlimited, and switch your website to HTTPS rather than using the very tight budget of IT. And that, my friend, is why everything is HTTPS. SonicWall DPI-SSL is the feature that allows you to decrypt and inspect HTTPS traffic. And since, I guess, 90 to 100% of web traffic is now on HTTPS, if it's not turned on, you're missing out on pretty much all the web traffic. You're just blind to it. There is nothing you can do. There is no inspection, no security, no features that can be turned on it. So this is really a crucial feature again. First, let's see at the very high level how HTTPS work. And I'm not gonna go into very details about certificate and issuers and private public key and all this. We'll keep it very simple. So when you go on facebook.com website, let's say there is some certificate that get exchanged that kind of build a encryption tunnel between your laptop and the Facebook servers. So what we will do with SonicWall DPI-SSL is precisely to break this. So going forward, all the HTTPS session and certificate and encryption gizmos and all this will be handled by the firewall. That allows the firewall to decrypt all HTTPS connections and also to be able to apply all the security features like IPS, app control, antivirus, ransomware protection with sandboxing, and all the other features that we have. Then the firewall will need to re-encrypt that communication to send it to your workstation. But we don't have the official certificate that Facebook or the Weather Network or any other website have. So we do need to re-encrypt with a self-signed certificate or any other certificate you want to provide the firewall. Doing such manipulation on HTTPS is guaranteed to cause issues. And don't get me wrong here, I'm not saying SonicWall made it complex. No, it's more or less the exact same complexity with every single firewall, simply because we're trying to break something designed not to be broken. And what we're doing is pretty much a man-in-the-middle attack. So there are things that will not work and will not appreciate such manipulation. First, we will need to import a certificate on all our workstations. Then we turn on DPISSL, and the big part of the work is to handle exceptions for things that don't work well with DPISSL. Generally speaking, everything that works in a web browser won't be an issue, and things that require a specific application to work will most likely not work. So let's get into it. Just turn on the features, see how it works, recommendation, break things, and all of that. The first thing first, we will need to go into licenses, because there's a little gotcha that you need a license for DPISSL, and spoiler alert, that license is free, but you kind of need to request it. So let's look at this. So here I am into NSM. I'm going to go into Firewall, Inventory, and click my Firewall. That is the firewall view of NSM, which is pretty much exactly the same view as if you connect directly into your firewall. So go into Policy, Client SSL, and you may see this. So that means you do not have a license for DPISSL, and we will go into licensing of our firewall to confirm that we do not have the DPISSL license. So with the beauty of CSC, I'm going to switch to my SonicWall. So if you're not using CSC and NSM, you just now log into my SonicWall. You find the firewall you want to work with, click the serial number, go under licenses, and simply find DPISSL in there. You will see a small power button icon, so click on it. That will get you the free license for DPISSL. And while you're there, there's DPISSH right underneath. That is also free, so while you're there, just request that license. And as you can see, both are licensed. And again, with the beauty of CSC, I'm going to switch directly back to NSM, where I can manage my firewall. Pretty convenient. So if you don't have NSM, just go back into your firewall. So with NSM, I'm going to go into my inventory, click the firewall. Now I'm into firewall view, and we will confirm that I do have a license for DPISSL at the bottom here. We see it is licensed. If you are managing the firewall without NSM, you may see it still as not being licensed. So just click the synchronize button at the top and it will show as being licensed now. And here in client SSL, see we do have all the options now. We do not have a error message and we don't have licenses. So now that we have our free license for DPISSL, we have one last step to do to ensure that DPISSL is going to work. And this is to turn on DPISSL client on the zone we want to work with. So simply go into the object menu, into zones, and find the zone you want to work with and check that DPISSL client is turned on. If not, simply edit the zone and turn it on. And then we go into the DPISSL menu, and this is where everything is configured. So go into the policy menu, DPISSL and SSL client. So I want to point your attention at the top where we see stats for DPISSL connections, which are the current amount of connection, the peak that you ever got, and the maximum the firewall can do. So just turn on SSL client inspection, turn on all security services. And I want to point your attention at the bottom where we do have allow SSL bypass. That means if there is too many connections for what the firewall can do, it will simply bypass DPISSL, which I recommend turning off. And the other one at the bottom, I will explain it later, but I recommend turning it on. So we will click cancel on this, because if you do click apply, it will turn on DPISSL for everyone and it will cause you a lot of issues. So click cancel, we'll turn it on later. Here we do see certificate. So if you want to upload a certificate, it was right there. For what we will do today, we'll download the cert, the built-in cert from SonicWall. So just here it's Chrome that doesn't like the cert, so just say keep the cert. So we will import it manually on my machine. So we just open the cert, select local machine, install, and we will select which location we want it, which is the trust root certificate. And click OK, next, finish, and we will get a message that the cert have been imported successfully. To deploy the certificate, I would personally recommend doing a GPO with Active Directory to simply push that certificate. I've put a link in the description box down below to a KB that exactly shows how to do it. It's quite easy, just look at this picture here, it shows exactly where you need to put the certificate in your GPO, and then you need to do the classic GP update / force on your Active Directory server, and you're pretty much good to go. Of course, you need to reboot the machine so that, next login, the certificate goes, but I'm sure you know how GPOs work. Oh, an important point, the GPO will push the certificate, will work with Internet Explorer, Edge, and Chrome, but Firefox is not using the certificate that are into the trust root certificate of Windows. Firefox has its own spot for certificate, so I'll find the link in this and I'll put it into the description box down below for Firefox users. Next is the Object tab. This is where you decide to who you apply DPISSL. I personally strongly suggest you go slowly in your deployment, right? You go into stages. first apply it to nobody but yourself and see how it goes, right? You see what works, and more specifically, see what's not working and fix it. And then once everything works well for you, all your IT tools and things you need to work, once you confirm they all work, then you can apply DPISSL to everyone in IT, because most likely that you guys are all using the same stuff outside, right? And then go see someone in HR and apply DPISSL to that person as well, and only that person, and make sure that everything works. Make sure payroll works. You gotta make sure this works. And once you confirm that everything works for that person in HR, then you can roll DPISSL to everyone in IT and everyone in HR, and then, keep moving on the same way. So strongly suggest you go into stage deployment. It's not the kind of thing, again, you can turn on Friday afternoon and move on with your weekend. It's not gonna work, guaranteed. So I personally see two end goal into deploying DPISSL. There is one that I call the much better than nothing and the best of the best. So let's start with the much better than nothing. This is for the guys here that have one single internal network and everything is in it. So you have of course, all your corporate devices, but you got some IoT, some bring your own device, the owner bring his home laptop in the office, connect it on the main network, and he wants to access everything with it, just like if it was a corporate device. Of course, it's not a situation that is the best. I would strongly suggest that you do network segregation and fix this, but I understand you're stuck with this. So what I would suggest is to leverage Active Directory authentication and single sign-on. So then you apply DPISSL to a group in Active Directory. Let's say the SonicWall DPI-SSL group. So you just add yourself into that group, test that DPISSL works well, just like I mentioned, test yourself, test everything, then move to everyone in IT, then someone in HR, and so forth. I like this approach simply because we apply DPISSL on machines that we have been able to authenticate that are users on the domain. So therefore, if there are users on the domain that we have been able to authenticate, it means they got the GPO and therefore the cert that allow DPISSL to work. But it's not the best approach, because if the owner home PC managed to get a ransomware through HTTPS, you're still screwed. So that is a better than nothing approach. We will apply DPISSL on machine we can because they got the cert through the GPO, and we will just skip DPISSL on machine we don't know who they are, like the owner home PC. I've put a link in the description box down below on a video I've done on Active Directory integration. Unfortunately, I haven't done a video yet on single sign-on, so I'll put a link to a SonicWall knowledge base, and once I have a video on it, I'll just replace it with my video. And now moving on to what I personally consider being the best approach to deploy DPISSL, the best end goal of DPISSL. So in order to do this, you really need to have done a good job at network segregation. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I've put a link in the description box down below on a video I've done on network segregation. So that will allow you to have one or many networks where you have all and only your corporate devices in that network, and everything that is BYOD or IoT and all those uncontrolled letters acronym will be in a different network. So we will turn on DPISSL on your entire corporate network. So for your temporary stage deployment, we'll use the exact same method. We'll start with yourself and then do it for all IT, then one person in HR, everyone in HR, and the exact same thing I've been dwelling over for the last couple of minutes. So, but instead of playing with Active Directory, we can just use very basic DHCP reservation. So you just put your IP in, give it a fixed IP through the HTTP or just an IP on the machine, and you simply apply DPISSL on this IP, and then you just move on. And once you're done deploying DPISSL and you've done everyone, and it works, you just get rid of all the ugly DHCP reservation and you just turn on DPISSL on the entire network. So to keep things simple for this video, I will just use static IP addresses because I don't want to get into complexity and mixing things about talking DPISSL, then talking Active Directory, then talking SSO. So it's going to be too complex and too long of a video. So I'll just do it with static IP addresses. But it's pretty much the same idea of what I'll be doing if you do it with Active Directory, because here I'll be working with an object that contains IP addresses. And if you do it with Active Directory, it's going to be an object that contains Active Directory users and groups. So it's kind of pretty much the same thing in the UI. If you do have a very large deployment, like a team of 20 IT people, 40 people in HR, 200 staff in engineering or what's not, I can understand you really don't want to go through the HTTP reservation and fix IP addresses. So then what you could do is just leverage Active Directory and single sign-on. And once you're done and you've deployed DPISSL to everyone, just get rid of the Active Directory group for DPISSL and just apply it to your entire network. So for now, I'll start with myself. So let's have a look. So this is where we will select what IP addresses or group that we want to work with. Here I'll do it with IP address. So I'll, as I mentioned, start with myself only. So this is the IP address of my laptop. So next we will create an address object and an address group that will contain my laptop only to start. So we go into match object, addresses, add, type in a name for that address object. JP laptops works fine. And I put it the IP address that I got from my ipconfig command. Next, we'll create a address group. Give it whatever name you want. For me, I'll select DPISSL address group. I will find the address object I just created and add it in there. So as you go and you keep adding people, just keep adding address object into that address group. And now we're going back into our client SSL configuration. We go into the object tab and into the address object, and the include, I will select the address group that I just created. So if you want to work with Active Directory and you've created a group in Active Directory with single sign-on, you will put that group in here. And then we hit accept. And now we go in the general tab and turn everything on like I showed you a couple minutes ago. Change those two at the bottom and hit accept. So now DPISSL is turned on, and it's turned on only for my laptop. So I'm not going to have any impact on anyone else in the organization. So now I'll go on a website that I like spending way too much time. And as we can see, the certificate is the SonicWall certificate, and we didn't get any warning. So if I go on Bing, see the same thing as the SonicWall cert. Then I'll go on YouTube. Same story here, SonicWall cert. I can click on videos and we'll see Johnny Depp just miserably failed. Next, we will go on Dropbox website. And as you can see, the certificate is the SonicWall cert. And I can click on file. For instance, I can open a PowerPoint presentation that I must have shared with someone at some point. We can see that DPISSL is working, so that PowerPoint have been scanned by IPS antivirus, ransomware, and everything. And see here, very light web browsing. I generated over 200 connection for DPISSL at peak. Next, we have Common Name tab. So this is where you will do the exceptions and most of the troubleshooting. By default, we have a list of exceptions here. I strongly suggest you go through them and review them. Like here, we can see Windows Update in there. Yes, I'm totally fine at not doing DPISSL for Windows Update stuff. But we also see something called UGU. Nah, I don't trust this thing. I don't even know what that thing is, so I'll just remove it. So just go through the list, and of course expect things to stop working if you turn them off, right? And also, I'm sure you remember a couple minutes ago was telling please turn this on and I'll explain you later. Well, that button was called Audit New Default Exclusion Domain Name prior to being added for exclusion. So this is in there. So that list that we see of exclusion, some will get added by SonicWall. So if you ask that they're not get added automatically, they will show up, but they will not be activated. It will be for you to review and turn them on if you want. So this is where I suggest things to not bypass DPISSL without you approving them first. And now there's a button I absolutely love. It's called Show Connection Failure. So that's the great magic button. So if things don't work, you click that button and it will most likely tell you what are the things that didn't work. So you can just select them and say, yes, please, and add an exclusion for this. So very easy, make troubleshooting a breeze. So we'll just give it a try. Remember, in the presentation I did a couple minutes ago, Dropbox website was working. And remember, I said, generally speaking, what is a website will work and what's an application may not work. Of course, it could be different, but generally speaking, that's what it is. So now let's try the Dropbox application and see what's going on. Okay, now let's start the Dropbox application. And as you can see, I got can't establish secured internet connection. The app is still trying to connect, trying to get things done. If I put my mouse over, I still have syncing. So, the application is trying its best, but it just doesn't work. So we'll use my favorite magic button, Show Connection Failure. And here we see we have about 4 things about Dropbox that simply didn't work. So as you can see here, how things are done, we see always dot something like dot Citrix Online. So it seems to be the way it's written to include many of them. So we will do the same. We'll remove preview and just keep .dropbox.com. Make sure only this one is selected and hit the exclude button. And hit OK. So as you can see, our Dropbox is right here. You can edit this. You have more options if you want to play with them. But we'll just leave it as is for now. So my Dropbox is still trying to get things done. It doesn't work. So we'll close the app and start it again. And yeah, of course, it complained it didn't start. I know, I figured that one out myself. Thanks. And we'll start Dropbox again. So we got connecting. Seems much better. Starting, sounds good. And up to date. So that kind of looks good. I still have my red X here. It's simply because my Dropbox is full, but see, it got all those warnings. So, and it's up to date, it's happy, so it just works. So a legit concern you may have is to see that we've disabled DPISSL for Dropbox. That means that the firewall will not be able to inspect with IPS, app control, antivirus, and those will not be able to inspect Dropbox communication. And I'm sure you suspect that the same will apply to G Suite and Office 365. And that's the case. So what I strongly suggest is to look at Cloud Application Security, which is another solution from SonicWall, and I've put a link in the description box down below. It's a solution purely designed to protect cloud application security like Dropbox, G Suite, and Office 365. And the last tab we have here is CFS Categories. Personally, I never go there to touch it because I don't really like the idea, but there is 2 things I want to talk about here. So the first one is, if you have a firewall that is too small to do DPISSL for the size of your organization, well, I would advise to change the firewall and put a bigger one because security-wise, that's what you need. But if the budget isn't there and the timing is not right, but you do want to turn on DPISSL on some stuff you consider to be more prone to get bad stuff through, you could use the CFS categories and turn on DPISSL on some categories of website, like social media. You could be like, well, I think there is more bad stuff that could potentially make their way through social media. So that's a way of doing it. One thing I do not want you to do, legit concern I've seen, management is like, well, I do not want you to do DPISSL on banking website, which could be a legit concern. If you want to do this, it's not through CFS categories, because if you disable DPISSL on banking website, it's not only the bank you guys are using, but every single bank worldwide, even those that are into a country you don't know that has very small next to no fiscal legislation. So I wouldn't disable DPISSL on those one. So if you want to disable DPISSL for specific banks, just go back into the common name tab and add the banking you want, like TD Bank or Bank of America or whatever the bank you do not want DPISSL to be performed. Thanks for watching. I really hope you appreciated that video. Next videos I would suggest is to have a look in the description box down below. I've put links to different videos I've done about the security features, because it's great that you decrypt all communication and inspect it with all the security features, but those features need to be set properly. So if you want it to be fully efficient, have a look at those videos. So thanks for watching and see you in the next one.